questions or comments? No, very well. Commissioners, I'd like to place a resolution on the floor. This is entitled, could we have quiet, please? Thank you. March 7th, 2012 resolution regarding ANC-1C position on HPRB concept review of 1770 Euclid Street comparing First Church of Christ Scientists and the proposed addition of a new structure to be used as a hotel. Whereas ANC-1C does wish to comment on the HPRB concept review and the relationship of the existing First Church of Christ Scientists and the proposed construction of a hotel, and whereas ANC-1C has been presented with plans incorporating alterations to the proposed new structure that will be in direct proximity to the existing First Church of Christ Scientists, and whereas ANC-1C does not at this time wish to comment on height, density, lot occupancy, or other zoning issues. Now,
find in HPRB.
In concept, the design presented to ANC-1C is in greater harmony with the church building and represents real progress from previous designs, and further resolved, the proposed materials, doors, windows, and roof shape of the proposed new design of the hotel are sufficiently different as to provide a suitable contrast from the presentation and the character of the First Church of Christ Scientists, and further resolved that ANC-1C encourages the developer to continue to work with HPRB to further refine the height, width, and proportions of the new design to seek greater compatibility with the historic preservation guidelines, and finally resolved that ANC-1C wishes to go on record as fully supporting all appropriate action to place the First Church of Christ Scientists under complete district and federal historic protection without prejudice to approval or denial of the proposed hotel structure. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Botrick. Commissioner, I think you've heard our neighbors. I think you've heard our friends. These are the moments in our work where you earn the big bucks. So at this point,
I have the budget before me.
is there any commissioner who wishes to speak on the resolution?
I would.
Commissioner Miller.
I favor this resolution largely because it addresses several of the points that have been discussed today. I know anyone who opposes this project is going to use every opportunity to voice that opposition out of fear that they will miss the last chance to weigh in their concerns. I don't know that this is the appropriate juncture for that. We're talking about the historic preservation of the church, and I think
No, we're not.
if you read this specifically, it acknowledges what the ANC is supporting, the differentiation between the doors, materials, the windows, a suitable contrast from the presentation and the character. And it encourages for there to be further discussion and further refinement, which is the concern that's largely been presented today regarding height, width, and proportions. So this seems to address all the concerns, maybe not all, but a lot of the concerns that are brought here today, and it puts forth a really small level of support. I mean, this is actually a very small step forward in just that the proposed new design of the hotel is sufficiently different, and it's changed a lot from the original design. And I think reading anything more into that, I recognize it as very zealous advocacy, and I appreciate it, but I don't know that's necessarily responsive to the text before us today.
Thank you. Commissioner Commanda?
First of all, I just want to thank Wilson for taking a stab at this and shepherding this process along. It's 10:45 now. I guess it's better than 11:45. On the resolution, I think. So when I read the resolution, I would strike everything but the second resolve clause.
Are you making an amendment?
I'm not. And
You should.
not yet, at
That'd be
least.
good.
And my purpose for doing so is that, obviously, to some extent, I kind of want to apologize to everyone who came here tonight thinking this was going to be like the drag down fight on the hotel, and it was going to either live or die as a result of this motion, which is not at all close to what's happening tonight. And to the extent that people have made comments that this resolution or debate is really on a very fine, narrow scope, I think a lot of people are gonna be let down by wherever we end up tonight. And so with that in mind, I do think that as far as the first resolve clause, I don't necessarily see that we gain anything from highlighting the relationship between this proposal and previous proposals. The second resolve clause goes to, I think, important components of the building, the design, the windows and the doors. But I also think that that misses the point of taking a stance on the concept or design of the hotel as it is. If we're going to say, well, we like the doors, we don't like the windows, or we like the windows and doors, but we don't like the height. Excuse me?
It's conclusionary.
Right. I mean, I just think, and so what I'm struck with, I think the most powerful point of this resolution is encouraging the developer to continue working with HPRB to further refine the height, width, and proportions of the design, to see greater compatibility with the guidelines. But the reason why I'm not putting this forward as a motion is I wanted some clarification on the point about continuing working with HPRB, and what it meant in terms of continuing as a function of the March 22nd vote, or continuing, what exactly is included in the idea of continuing work with HPRB, as opposed to HBO or zoning or the community, like why that entity and what that entails is something I kind of want to get more clarification on, because I think that's, you know, if that were the only thing we voted out tonight, I think I'd be very comfortable with it.
So, let me try to take a run at explaining it.
Yeah.
Okay, now, you know, obviously, there's the attempt at creating the pros of this and what's intended that we try to communicate over to HPRB should this actually receive success and be voted on. But clearly, what I've heard before this meeting tonight is that there are serious objections to height, width, density, all those issues.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to the zoning commission side of those definitions,
Right.
but staying within historic guidelines of relevance, compatibility, ratios, contrast, and those other items. So I go back to the guidelines, which I gave you a copy of.
Yeah.
And where it talks about, you know, it addresses the height, width, proportions, rhythm of windows and doors, roof shape, ornamentation, projections and materials of the addition, all contribute to its appearance. And I felt that some things that we had seen come along here, definite improvements, especially compared to this glass blob thing we had.
Right.
And some things we still haven't seen the proper resolution. And I realize that these are all subjective definitions that we're struggling with, but to me, a concept review is sort of like pulling over on the interstate at a rest stop. You're taking a break, and you're looking back, and you're looking forward, and it's like, are we in the right direction? Is it getting better? Are we getting closer? That was the subjective prism I was working through when I was crafting this language. If my construction of language is not accurate enough, I apologize. But given what I was reading here,
Yeah.
and my concept of what a concept review is, this is where I got to at the rest stop.
Right, and I guess my question was not so much on the style of the language, but what it meant to pass a resolution that's going to HPRB to say, we believe that the entity before you should continue working with you. It just seems a little bit, maybe I'm just not understanding, it seems a little bit circular to say, I guess another way